Hindu parents, it's time for a reality check. Are you making these 5 crucial mistakes in trying to raise your children to be Hindu? The typical Hindu immigrant comes to a new country and their focus is on one thing: improving their economic standing. What that means is that they hunker down, they find a good job, they make some money, and they make sure their kids get a good education so that they themselves can live a better life. But this life misses one crucial aspect. There isn't a mechanism to transmit the Hindu way of living. This applies to any Hindu living in any part of the world. Now, we could go into the reasons for this, and many of you watching my videos know the history of how India was looted and how the economic situation of all the Indians in the 1800s and the 1900s was horrific. Famine and extreme poverty ruled over India during that period, so of course the focus for Hindus today isn't on the transmission of their culture, but it becomes one of pure survival. This then leads to a push to find jobs in medicine, law, engineering, and of course the STEM careers because of the economic security that these type of jobs bring. Very simply, years of neglect with a focus solely on the accumulation of wealth has deprived Hindus of the very things that make us who we are. There's been a push in recent years to make Hinduism cool by showing how rational and scientific it is. I think we've all received those WhatsApp forwards from your favorite uncle, and I think you know the ones that I'm talking about. It's how Hindus were the first to come up with the Pythagorean theory. Look how scientific fasting is. Look at the science of astrology. But honestly now, do you really think you are going to convince someone to remain Hindu by explaining to them how scientific their religion is? Why do we do this for? Now, don't get me wrong, I think it comes from a good place because we live in an era of great advancements in technology and science, and many of us are fascinated by the relentless push of opening up new frontiers and products. Who would have thought that we could house so many different things inside this simple cell phone? But here's the catch. Technology for us and the older person certainly does seem magical when you lived in an era where these things did not exist. And when you finally do see it, you're like, wow! You think it's the greatest invention since sliced bread. However, to kids growing up, that fascination with technology is not going to be there because it's their new normal. So equating Hinduism with rational and scientific is not going to win you any arguments. Quite often as parents, there's a struggle between modernity and ancient civilizational practices. How do we reconcile both of them? What do you tell your son or daughter who is growing up that perhaps their choice of clothing isn't the most appropriate for a temple function? What does that conversation even look like? More often than not, there's most likely a top-down, authoritative parenting style that's going to be met with resistance. I know I was like that back in the day when I wanted to wear baggy jeans and of course my gold chain. Parents simply cannot stick their heads in the sand when it comes to pop culture and these trends. How we choose to frame these discussions with our kids goes a long way in how the next generation views ancient traditions. Are you comfortable having uncomfortable conversations? Because that's basically what's going to happen. Fashion is an easy one. What about underage alcohol consumption? We all know high school parties are a thing, and more often than not, alcohol is going to be present. What do you do then? The gut reaction here would be to keep your child in a bubble, thinking that if I don't expose them to these things, it's not going to affect us. And I can see some of this in the rise of a lot of Hindu homeschooling. I love the idea, don't get me wrong, but there's also a part of me that worries that we're prolonging the inevitable, and a lot of growing up happens when kids leave their home environment. And I do fear that this could lead us to trouble down the line. There are 2 things we don't talk about enough at the dinner table. Number 1, what does it mean to be Hindu? And number 2, what are the problems facing Hinduism? We don't talk about Hinduism in a real sense, and we only talk about it in a way that seems distant and far off. Let me give you an example. On Krishna Janmashtami, on our way to the temple, my 3-year-old asked me, "Is Krishna real?" How would you answer that as a parent? How would you answer that as a teacher? Would you even answer it? Even more, is there an environment in your home where kids feel comfortable even asking questions like these? The previous generations would basically tell you to stop asking questions, but we know that this approach usually leads down the wrong path. Secondly, Hindu parents hardly discuss the wider issues that affect Hindus, nor do we even ask our kids questions that they have about Hinduism. We attend our Diwali galas, our Navratri garbas, and we sing our bhajans and kirtans, but we don't talk openly about the challenges we face as a Hindu. We don't talk about the suffering of Hindus in Bangladesh. We don't look at what's happening at Hindu girls in Pakistan. There is a part of us that wants to hide the negative news and the struggles of Hinduism. This does more harm than good because it minimizes and downplays the suffering of Hindus to the point where we stop caring about any of these issues. Let me ask you a question. Do you bring your kids to the temple? Oh, they're a little young. You'll wait until they're older? Sure. Your son is 6 years old now? Is he old enough now to come to the temple? Oh, no, we can't, because we have him enrolled in soccer and hockey. You know, kids have to stay fit and healthy. He's now in high school? Wow, look how time flies. Does he want to come Durga Puja with us? Oh, no? He can't because he's too busy with his studies? No time? Oh, he's doing extra classes. Do you see where this is going? There is a reason why we say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because it's true. We put off and we wait over and over and over again. It's the same attitude we have towards all aspects of our lives. The reality, though, is that there's never a perfect time to start cultivating Hindu values, traditions, or customs. It's when you make it a priority that things actually start to change. So what exactly is my number one parenting hack to start raising Hindu children? Prioritize a Hindu identity by being the example. I can't state this enough. When your son or daughter is a baby, bring them to your home altar and let them sit in front of you to light a diya. The diya itself is an excitement. Do that every day. Do you know what happens now? If we're rushing in the morning, we get reminded by our own kids that we missed part of our routine. It's so simple, but we create all these obstacles in our mind that we need to be at a certain stage of life before we can do any of this. How do you think Hinduism survived in the Caribbean? You should watch this.